Right then, this is D'Angelo Duds. I'm prop and costume maker. This is a little pipe pistol. A few of you will recognise it once it's constructed. It's from a favourite old game, Fallout. I'm not sure which Fallout it is. I think it's Fallout 4. This has all been 3D printed in PETG, and I've done all the boring bit, the dreaded sanding, and I've added some wood filler to certain pieces just to give it for those print lines that you can't get out, and it also adds a little bit of texture as well, because obviously I want to make it look like it's sort of old metal. So I've added a bit of wood filler to it, let that all dry off. I've stuck it on a heater so it dries up quicker. But at this stage, it's just, there's going to be more sanding later and then messing around with it a bit more just to distress it and make it look a bit used and battered. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to construct it first with certain props like this, like weapon props or where any kind of prop, you sort of paint it in stages. So the barrel, basically, I would paint separately and then put it all together once it's all painted. But with this, I've found it's just easier to get it all up and running and then give it all a base coat of filler primer. Make sure it's all in the nooks and crannies. Let that finish cure off, and then I'll give it a base coat of like a chromey type silver, and then the distressing part of it will all start. But prior to the painting and stuff, once it's all constructed, all these really nice edges and stuff like that, I'll sort of beat those up a little bit to make them look a bit more, you know, used and so on. So I'm going to start the construction with it. I normally use 2-part epoxy, like Araldite or something, and maybe a bit of super glue here and there, just to get it, a tiny bit of super glue just to get something in position, but it's already got epoxy on it, if you know what I mean. So then the epoxy sets with it in the correct position. It's like 5-minute epoxy, so it doesn't take too long. But so the next bit, hopefully I should have it all constructed, and then we'll go from there. Cool beans. Right, it's taken me about, I don't know, half hour or so to construct it. As you can see, it's full size. There's quite a few pieces to it, and I will be chopping a few pieces off of it once it's fully cured. I'll just sort of give it another half hour before it's before I start messing with it. Like this, I don't like it. I just chop that off and make my own sights for it and cut them down a bit. And then generally I'm just gonna take all of these edges off just to make it look a bit more sort of, you know, worn out, and been around the block a few times before I then give it the base coat. Whilst I was constructing it, it's just a combination of a few hand files, a Dremel, you know, one of those doobies, just to get everything to fit nice and snug. And so the next stage is just let this cure a little bit longer, and then I will hit it with this to get all the edges down and any other little niggly little lines and stuff that's on there. Cut some bits off. I use another Dremel with like a cutting disc, which works rather well. And the thing is with PETG, I mean any kind of 3D print or plastics anyway, it kind of melts when you start cutting it. So you've got to be, you know, a bit quick with it, and so you don't distort the whole thing. And that will be the next stage. So I'm going to give that a little while longer for it to, you know, strengthen up a little bit. And like I say, most of it, well, all of it is Araldite. I've used a 2-part epoxy to get everything together, because especially like triggers and stuff like that, because people tend to you know, if you're using it in photo shoots or whatever it is, you know, or if you show a friend, they always pull that trigger or pull that hammer down. It's, you know, it's just what they do. So I always strengthen those areas. Yeah, so I shall get messy with it in the next half an hour or so, once I know it's all nice and cured and I can drop it and stuff and it ain't gonna fall apart. So yeah, cool beans. Right, I shall catch you soonio once that's done its thing. Right, okay, I've I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, I've kind of messed up some of the edges and taken bits down, taken all the nice sharp edges off. I've stuck some, just to give the delusion, like that's like the hammer bolt and the trigger bolt, that kind of thing. I've put some metal sights because the other ones are a bit, you know, at least if you drop it they ain't gonna snap off, that type of vibe. Sort of messed it about a bit, and it's basically just using this and just taking it off randomly, try and get out of that pattern bit, so you know you kind of warp it all, just try and make it look like it's beaten up. This is what the vibe I'm going for, so it's just a case of, yeah, keep playing about with it. Obviously don't go too far, and try not to keep this on if it's 3D print or some form of plastic. Remember to try not to keep this on there for too long with the heat. It'll just it'll melt it. So yeah, and that's it really. And then I'll lightly sand this by hand with 120 grit or something. Turn that off. I lightly sand it with some of that, just to try and get all these little burrs off, which you can see. And the other cool thing with plastic, I mean, as long as you don't hit any glue, you can kind of burn off those little bits. Like I say, if you've got any glue which is still a bit, yeah, you'll have a fire. But there's a few bits in here. Dodgy, doesn't go out. Anyway, so there we go. One pipe pistol ready for the undercoat. And that's going to show me some other bits and bobs as well. So I might, you know, sort of backtrack and do, oh, right, okay, I've got to take some of that off or what have you, or sand that bit down because it's doing me head in. This will be cloth wrapped, the handle, eventually. But I will go for like a silvery, rusty kind of vibe. But I'll show that process as I go along, because there's another method that I do for texturing is it's this horrible super glue stuff. I get this really cheap stuff because you buy it in big packs, but it works. And then I mix it with like a grit, a really fine grit, and you can put it in places and you get that. And if you kind of use acrylics for rusting effect, you'll get that sort of real rust kind of textured vibe from it. So the next bit is I'm just going to undercoat it and then let that settle, and I'll show you that once that's done. Cool beans. Right, we're back. Right, I've primed it. It's filler primer, so it's pretty much dry. It might be a bit damp in places, but I don't care. Right, so the next stage before it is, right, I'm going to actually put gloves on because I don't want to get my hands dirty. But yeah, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add some more texture to it. I'm using this like fine kind of gritty stuff. It's not that, but it's just, yeah, it's like a fine sand stuff. So what I'm going to do is use super glue, and these little places down here, like so, I'm just going to chuck a bit of super glue in it, and then just sprinkle a little bit of that on there. Yeah, so I'm just going to do it in sort of random places where crap may have built up and caused a bit of rust or what have you. And that's really going to set in hard on there as well, and it also reinforces some of the parts if you're doing something which is a bit more intricate. And where I've got bits of the aldite, which is, I didn't wipe off purposely, it just gives you that extra bit of texture. I mean, you haven't got to go crazy, and obviously these are new screws and or what have you, so I'll probably just mess with those a bit. Give that kind of vibe. And once this piece here as well, there's not a lot of meat holding that in really, even though it's well aldited, but it's just nice to give it that extra little bit. I'll do this one quite heavily. I don't know if I'm videoing this very well, but it's the first video. Holy moly, I've been nagged about it for so long, so I thought I'll have a go, see what happens. It might be the last. I don't know. I will do a little video of my little workspace, my little workshop, which I built myself. Chuck a little bit there, a little bit there. Get some in there, that will reinforce that bad boy. The whole idea of me doing this before I do the next layer of paint is so I just spray all over this, and then I start adding, you know, maybe bits, obviously the stressy bit, the rusting and stuff, using acrylics and stuff like that. So right, okay, I'm not going to go too far, and obviously with the hammer in here I've got to use like an X-Acto knife so it looks like it does move, if you like, so there will be some form of gap. Right. I think that's going to be enough. Right then. It is worth wearing gloves for this bit because super glue and that, and it just takes ages to get it off your hands. Right. So that's that stage done, which is pretty cool. Just have a clean up quick. So the next stage we'll see is I'm just going to give it a coat of some silver spray paint, basically the whole thing. Once that's dried a bit, spray it all silver, all in the nooks and crannies, and then the detailing basically will kick in after that. Oh, sugar, I didn't do that bit. Right. No, I'm not gonna. Oh, will I? Yeah, I'm going to. It's just the posi screws. I don't really like them. I don't know why. Just, but I like the other one, so I'll leave that one. I'll mess with. Yeah, so I'm gonna do the silver, give it a coat in a bit, maybe let that kick in, and then I'll do a base layer of acrylic over it to stress it out a bit, and then I'll lacquer it, and then you just go through the layers then of acrylics and so on until you're done, you know. And but you will see the end product eventually. I've obviously got the cloth wrap to do as well. So there we go, and I shall see you again in a minute. Bosh.